Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for our first Friday webinar. Today is a really special webinar that we're doing. Since it's December, we thought it's a great time to talk about how this is a season for giving. And we've brought on a personal finance expert to talk to us about strategies for giving, including some things about real estate. So we'll introduce her here in just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Attempt to share my screen.
Ashley, you're doing great. I can see your screen. I'm so impressed. I think you just officially knocked me off as host of this cast
Well,
here.
at least I know I can do it now. And Parker, while you're not on mute, I want to say thank you so much for sponsoring this webinar, you and your company, American Financial Network, and this season of giving. So
Of course, and I'm actually in Atlanta. Ashley, I know because you're in Atlanta too, so I wish we could have been in person together. I'm in Atlanta for my brother's wedding. I'm in a Marriott lobby, and there's a very loud soap opera on in the background. So I'll be chiming in. And Ashley and Lisa, if you see my lips moving, we don't hear anything. Just do the whole cliche, you're on mute that we all learned how to do during the pandemic. So no, I'm super happy to co-host this. Ashley, you are one of my absolute favorite people to work with, favorite people to know, and you are truly, I would say, the best realtor in North Georgia. I think that's a fair statement. And then
oh,
Lisa,
wow.
really excited for the folks to hear this amazing content you've prepared for us. Just going through our practice session 2 weeks ago, I was blown away with the content. So I'm excited for everyone who's going to watch this.
So and Lisa's in Atlanta too. We really could have just all gotten together today and had a nice session together. Well, welcome everybody again. Really quick, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, it will be my job this time to kind of keep an eye on the question and answer box. So just stick them in there. We'll get to them at the end if we don't get to them in a timely manner during the session. And we'll introduce ourselves real quick. So Parker, thanks for the nice, warm introduction that you gave. I'm a realtor in North Atlanta area. I focus on Lake Lanier, and I really like to consider myself a dream maker more than a realtor. If you have a dream for where you want yourself or your family to go, especially as it has to do with real estate over the many, many years and generations that you have, I like to hear what those are and then help you guys make that happen. And I love to travel. I work with my dad. That's the guy up in the top left corner. Love to travel, love to be active and outside and spend time with friends, especially eating good food. So met Parker in Memphis when I was running a charter school. And so Parker, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, Ashley. Yes, that's right. We knew each other in Memphis. You ran an awesome school. It was a high school. I ran a middle school. And then I think we found out that the other was in real estate by happenstance, right? We were in a webinar and we had just switched up. So just such a small world. Yeah, so my name is Parker Couch. I'm the producing branch manager with the American Financial Network. Was born and raised in the Gainesville, Georgia area. Lived there most of my life. Went to Memphis and then relocated to Austin, Texas about 4 years ago. But most of my business is still in Georgia. Well, it's kind of split between Georgia and Texas. And so Ashley and I have been doing these webinars now the first Friday of every month for over a year. And it's been a blast.
Great. Thank you, Parker.
Oh, yeah. And then all of those things too. All right. On to
yes.
Lisa.
Actually, these are really important things. So I'm not going to let you just skim over them today. Parker, when I work with him, he makes these promises and he's very serious about them, that his loans will always close on time. He is a total over communicator. So am I. Sometimes we over communicate too much, even with the same client that we're working with. And he provides VIP customer service for all his clients. That's one of the reasons I love working with him, because I think that's so important for anybody that we are interacting with, is that you are our VIP while you are working with us and even beyond as well. Okay, Lisa, we're so excited that you're here today. Thank you. Lisa comes highly recommended from one of our webinar viewers, regular webinar viewers, who ran a financial planning company in Atlanta. And so we're really excited to have you, Lisa, share with us today. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm so glad to be here with you, Ashley and Parker, and all of your guests today to share some financial and tax tips on the season of giving. I've been in the wealth management industry my entire career, almost 25 years. A native of upstate New York, but my husband and I have lived in Cumming and South Forsyth for the last 17 years. So we've been longtime residents. I joke, I think I've seen our neighborhood turn over 3 times. So when we bought our house, we did not have kids, but we started our family, have grown our family, have 2 teenagers that are about to start driving next week. So we've seen a lot of change in our family, a lot of change in the area, but we certainly love being Forsyth County residents. Also an author and public speaker. I have published 3 books, 2 of which are personal finance books for women. Called Girl Talk, Money Talk. The Smart Girl's Guide to Money After College is the first one. That's for young women in their 20s and 30s. First job out of college. What do I do with this thing called a 401k? First time buying a house. How do I figure out how much I can afford? Mortgage payments, all that good stuff, all those good firsts that you come across in your 20s and 30s. And how do you make sure you make wise decisions with those big financial decisions that you have so that you set yourself up for a lifetime of success? And then a couple years ago, I published my second book in the Girl Talk Money Talk series. This is for women in their 40s and 50s, and it's called Financially Fit and Fabulous in Your 40s and 50s. I've also co-authored a book for corporate executives, which has been my area of expertise during my career in wealth management, is working with busy corporate executives. Do a lot of public speaking in that area, as well as speaking to women's organizations on the topic of financial wellness. I mentioned I'm a mom, so we do have twins that are turning 15 next week, and I have an 11-year-old girl. And I do enjoy running, often running around our neighborhood and on the local streets. My husband and I are both cyclists, so we like to cycle up around Lake Lanier, and actually through Lake Lanier Park as well. And recently took up that fun game of golf a couple years ago.
You
And
know,
I've had
oh, go
was
ahead.
on the next slide, Ashley, if you want to move forward. I've
Yes.
had the pleasure of having some really neat media opportunities over the course of my career. So I've been featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and Kiplinger and all sorts of different financial media outlets. So hopefully some of the tips that I've shared with the media will be able to share with your select audience today, and everyone will find some good value out of it.
And Lisa, I will say, if you saw my eyes darting off the screen, it's because I just ordered your 2 books, Girl Talk Money Talk and Girl Talk Money Talk 2, for my wife. She started her own business 3 years ago. It's going very well. We just had a conversation about, she's like, are we doing well financially? And I was like, yes. And she goes, but how do I know? So I just got these 2 books for her. So that's a shameless plug, but I'm excited to read them.
Well, you're sweet. I hope she enjoys them. I think she will.
I am sure she will. This is great, Lisa. Thank you. And thanks again for being willing to share what your knowledge and your expertise with our listeners today and watchers. So again, this particular webinar, we're focused on a season of giving. And with Lisa, she's going to be able to talk to us about gifting strategies to family, upcoming tax law changes, giving to charity, and even talk about her thoughts on buying second homes. So let's start though with giving money and assets to family. How does that work, Lisa? How do our listeners, what do they need to know from a tax or a legal standpoint?
Right. So obviously, this month in particular is probably one of the biggest months for most people to think about giving to family and giving to their community. In terms of giving to family, for the most part, those gifts do not need to be reported to the federal government, right? If you're buying holiday gifts for your family, that's not something the government needs to know about. But what they do want to know about is larger dollar amount gifts that you're transferring to family members. So there is something called an annual gift tax exclusion, which currently in 2023 is $17,000 per person. And so what that means is if I give my son gifts at the holidays that value less than $17,000, I don't need to report that to the government on what's called the gift tax return, nor does my son need to report that as income. Now, looking at the price tag of the sneakers that my son has asked for the holidays, I'm not quite sure I'll be able to stay under that. But in any event, now I'm married. So as a married couple, my husband and I can give an unlimited number of people $34,000 this year, not have to report that as a gift to the IRS, nor does the person receiving it have to worry about reporting it or paying taxes on it. So this annual gift tax exclusion is a way for the government to say there's a de minimis amount of money that we're okay families transferring, within themselves or to friends or whatnot, without having to tell us about it. But above that amount, we may want you to tell us about that because there's a certain amount of money that you're allowed to give to family members during your lifetime or when you pass away. And above those amounts, the government says, we want to know about it and we're going to levy some taxes on it. So every year there's this annual gift tax exclusion. It's actually set to go up in January to $18,000 a person or $36,000 for a married couple. So just keep that in mind. The estate tax exemption is just under $13 million per person. And so what that means is if I total up all of the assets on my balance sheet, my real estate, my investment accounts, my retirement assets, my cars, land, whatever that may be, life insurance is another asset. If I total all of those up, if they're worth less than $13 million or $26 million, I'm rounding here as a married couple, I can pass those to the next generation without paying any estate taxes. Now, those limits, the current law is set to sunset the end of 2025. And based on current law, if nothing changes, this $13 million number or $26 million as a married couple is set to go in half in a couple of years. So for many people, they don't need to worry about estate taxes now, but they might need to worry about it in a few years. So if you've got some, couple homes, some land that's really appreciated, a big life insurance policy, whatever that may be, you might find yourself on the bubble in a few years and say, do I need to take advantage of some strategies to lower the value of the assets on my balance sheet to avoid possible estate taxes when I or we pass away? So it's not really talked about in the media that much right now, the pending estate tax law change, but I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about it over the next 12, 18 months. And so what I think we tend to see a lot of clients start asking us, knowing tax law changes are going to be happening, is, hey, do I need to make any big changes right now with my will or my trust or start moving some money into my kids? Well, we need to be careful that we don't jump to any conclusions and make any irrevocable decisions. That's always one big piece of advice that I give to clients, because I can tell you every time I've seen a tax law change be put out there in the future, at the 11th hour, things always change, right? And it never ends up being exactly what people thought it would be. So what you don't want to do is jump to any conclusions and say, I've got a big estate tax problem facing me in 3 years. I need to start transferring the beach house down to my daughter or whatever that may be. Definitely talk with your estate planning attorney first before you make any decisions. It very well could be there's some simple things you can do today to tighten up your estate planning and your balance sheet so you won't have a tax problem in a couple of years without having to make any major decisions that'll impact your retirement cash flow or income. But don't make any changes unless you consult with your attorney. That's always a big piece of advice when there's tax law changes coming up.
Lisa, I did notice that you said family and friends. So
Yes.
if you want to offload $17,000 to a new friend, I'd be happy to send you my Venmo link after. Ashley, you too, you're a dear friend. So again, Christmas is coming. My wife and I just bought a new house. No, I'm kidding, of course. But Lisa, one quick thing to say is you and I know we have questions, but you had talked about life insurance policies being considered an asset on the balance sheet. That's really fascinating. I never thought about that. Are there any other types of assets in a similar bucket, thinking of like life insurance policies, essentially overlooked assets that folks would never even consider to be on their asset sheet, which they really should be considering?
It's a really good question. I would say, first of all, a lot of people, I don't think, realize the magnitude of what their balance sheet is. Ask yourself, when is the last time I actually sat down and took pen to paper and actually wrote down, here's all the assets and here's what they're currently worth, I can't tell you how many clients I've met over the years where we sit down for the first time, put a financial plan together, we're putting the balance sheet together. And then during the course of a subsequent meeting, they're like, oh, I forgot that I had that old 401k at my old job. So one thing that I really recommend people do at a minimum is annually sit down and document your assets and your liabilities. Make sure you're not missing anything, because you know what? Something happens to you and this isn't documented somewhere. How is your executor going to know that they've collected all of your assets together? Right. So it's really important that we're documenting these things and updating them annually. We, so far this year, we've had a pretty good year in the stock market, especially the last month. And so people might be surprised how much their investment accounts have gone up this year versus what the value was last year. But yes, life insurance is often overlooked. Old retirement accounts that you kind of left behind and forgot about could be overlooked. Maybe there's a family trust that you're the beneficiary of. Maybe it hasn't paid out to you yet, but it could in the next few years, and all of a sudden you could have a additional 7 figures on your balance sheet from a nice windfall coming. So that's something to be cognizant of as well. I have clients who have done a little bit more sophisticated estate planning now in anticipation of that inheritance coming in the next 5 to 10 years, and knowing that these estate tax laws are set to go down. When they get their inheritance, they might find themselves in a tax problem. So those are just some helpful hints to make sure you're not missing any assets and you're being thoughtful about what's coming in the future.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing about how we can give our money, our real estate, and other assets to our family or even our friends. Let's now talk about gifting to the community and some of our favorite charities.
This is definitely one of my favorite topics to talk about. I am personally involved in nonprofit organizations around Atlanta, specifically in Forsyth County. I've been the treasurer of an organization called Family Promise of Forsyth County for the last 6 years. And these are some topics I've talked to their donors about as well. So one of the when it comes to real estate, one of the common questions that we see come up is, if somebody is thinking about gifting a piece of real estate to their favorite nonprofit. Now, that is absolutely generous. Any gift that's made to a nonprofit is certainly generous. But when it comes to real estate, this can pose some challenges to the charity that the donor may not be thinking about. First, the donor is going to need to have an appraisal for tax purposes of the piece of real estate if they're donating it to charity and they want to take a subsequent tax deduction on their tax return. But in order for the charity to receive this piece of real estate, their real estate is considered one of those, we call it complex assets. So let's say it's a rental home. Perhaps it's not being rented anymore, but the charity is going to have to take on the utility bills, the property taxes, the insurance for this property. The charity is going to want to sell it as quickly as possible. But in the interim, there's going to be some carrying costs for that charity. What if this piece of property happens to be in a less than desirable area and could take some time for the charity to be able to sell? Well, first off, most charities don't have a staff of people who are accustomed to having to sell these complex assets. And so that's going to take some time and resources of the charity. And again, could add some extra expense to their budget that they absolutely weren't planning on that year. So what I always recommend when it comes to gifting real estate to charity, talk to the charity, talk to the executive director in advance and say, would you be willing to accept this asset? Could you accept this asset? You may be surprised that they say, thank you so much for your generosity, but we can't accept that asset. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the concept on the bottom of the slide called the donor advised fund. What a donor advised fund is essentially like a brokerage account, an investment account where you can transfer things like cash, stocks, mutual funds, sometimes real estate, sometimes artwork, other complex assets into this account. Those assets get sold quickly, turned into cash, and then you can take the cash inside the donor advised fund and leave it as cash or reinvest it in different investments that are available. Now, donor advised funds can be open at like your local community foundation. Most major financial institutions offer them. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, for example, have donor advised funds. And some of the beauties of the donor advised fund include being able to transfer appreciated assets into the donor advised fund. They immediately get sold, and there's no capital gain tax due. So let's say I have some shares of Apple stock, and Apple stock's gone up in value over time. I'll just use an easy example. I've paid $100 a share for the Apple stock. It's worth $150 a share. If I were to sell that at $150 a share, take that cash because I wanted to give it to charity, I'm going to have to pay capital gains tax on the $50 of appreciation in my Apple stock. But if I transfer my Apple stock worth $150 a share into my donor advised fund and it gets sold inside the donor advised fund, there's no capital gain tax. I still get to deduct the $150 value of my Apple stock on my tax return, but nobody pays capital gains taxes. So that actually leaves a lot more money for me to benefit my favorite charities with. Now, another benefit of the donor advised fund is you don't have to give all that money out to your favorite charities right away. You can actually leave money in this account and let it grow for many years and just dribble a little bit out over a long period of time. So this gives you flexibility. Let's say you're in a situation where you sold a big piece of real estate this year and you've got a really big capital gain on it. So congratulations on that win, but you're looking for ways to save tax this year. So maybe you make a larger gift into your donor advised fund this year and you say, I'm going to kind of fast forward 5 years of my normal giving to charity, and I'm going to put all that money into the donor advised fund this year, but still dole it out to my favorite charities over the next 5 years. But I get the tax deduction this year, the year that I fund the donor advised fund.
Hey, Lisa, a quick question about that. With the donor advised fund, does it, and this is a simple comparison, does it almost function like an HSA that you would fund in terms of you're getting it's pre-tax, it's pre-tax money that's then not taxed as long as you're using it towards a certain expense?
Right. So the HSA, the health savings account, has something called a triple tax play. So you save taxes on the money going in, you don't pay taxes on the money in there as it's growing, and you don't pay money when you don't pay tax when you take money out of the HSA as long as it's used for medical. So donor advised fund has a lot of similarities. You get a tax deduction when you put the money in. If you decide to invest the money inside the donor advised fund, you're not paying taxes on the interest and dividends and gains as the money's growing. When money goes out of the donor advised fund to your favorite charity, there's no tax when the money goes out to the charity, but you don't get an extra charitable deduction because remember, we took our deduction up front. Okay. So a great example, a lot of similarities to the HSA, but just remember, you can't double dip on your charitable deduction.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Lisa, we've just got a question here from Sherry, which is kind of another question about the donor advised fund, but tying into the beginning of the slide when you were talking about, okay, I have this rental home, I want to give it to this organization, but you said, it's difficult for the organizations to manage the potentially selling of the home and all the carrying costs that they have in the meantime. So Sherry wants to know, can you donate, and would it make more sense to donate the home to a donor advised fund and let them take care of all of that, similar to your Apple stock example, or is it still difficult to deal with real estate in a donor advised fund?
So Sherry was a great segue to why I wanted to jump over to the donor advised fund after talking about real estate, because some donor advised funds can accept real estate. And so this could be a way for you to say, I want to donate my real estate and it's going to be turned into cash, and then I can turn around and essentially give the cash to the charity. There are some companies out there in the country that specialize in taking complex assets such as real estate, and they'll accept them, they'll sell them, and then they'll transfer the money to your donor advised fund. So there are ways to leverage gifting the real estate to charity if the charity can't accept it directly, and a donor advised fund may be a great second option to consider.
Great, thank you.
Now, the last piece on the charitable giving that I want to talk about is the middle bar of the slide, and it's called a qualified charitable distribution. It's nicknamed QCD. So what this is it's part of the tax law, and it says if you are age 70 and a half or older and you have a retirement account, let's say an IRA, individual retirement account, you can take up to $100,000 a year out of your IRA and give that money directly to charities of your choosing. When you take the money out as a QCD, you do not have to report that as income. So if I were to take money out of my IRA and put it in my bank account, I have to pay tax on that distribution. But if I take money out of my IRA up to $100,000 a year and I give it directly to charity, I don't report that as income. Now, I don't get an offsetting charitable deduction because, again, I didn't include it as income. So I can't double dip here on the benefit. But for those who are retired, one of the lesser known benefits of doing a QCD as a way to fund gifts to charity is if you have to take money out of your IRA anyway, by the way, that age just changed. It's now age 73, where you have to start taking money out of your IRA. So you can still do a QCD as long as you're age 70 and a half, but you now can wait until you're 73 until you have to take money out of the IRA. So let's say I'm 73 and I have to take money out of my IRA this year, and I'm in the fortunate situation where I can pay my bills without that money and I don't really need it. Well, if I took the RMD out, the required minimum distribution out, and I put it in my bank account, that's income. That income counts towards how much in Medicare premiums I may have to pay. So if I don't need the money, but I need to take it out of my IRA anyway, if I process it as a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, that money coming out of my IRA doesn't show up in my tax return as income. It could prevent me from being bumped into a higher Medicare premium bracket. So that's one of those lesser known benefits of using your IRA money to benefit your local community. So a QCD, gifting appreciated assets, is typically better than giving cash to charity because there's more benefits to you personally. And at the end of the day, the charity is getting cash anyway, so they're happy. But you might as well take advantage of some of the extra tax benefits and other financial benefits by giving appreciated assets to charity or giving processing a QCD.
That is something I had never heard of before. We did our practice session a couple of weeks ago, so I thought that was a really interesting way to, like you said, protect your retirement lifestyle, I guess, and the money that you want to spend there, but still being able to give to charity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I think this is really, really interesting thinking about folks. I'm thinking about my in-laws who own several investment properties, and they'll start wanting to sell those, I think, within the next 5 to 10 years. There were some, they talked about maybe doing like essentially transferring, doing a quit claim deed of a certain property, and then trying to do and holding it in a trust, and then trying to do a 1031 exchange. When in reality, this just seems like the donor advised fund just seems like a much simpler solution. So thank you for sharing that.
One thing I'll mention too about giving to charity and utilizing the donor advised fund, while there are phenomenal tax advantages, you always have to remember when you give money to charity, you are personally never financially better off. Okay, so that's still an asset going off your balance sheet. So when you're utilizing these strategies, they tend to work best if you're planning to give money to charity anyway. Okay, if you have certain passions, certain organizations you want to support, because again, you will never be personally better financially off by giving money to charity. However, if you're going to give money to charity, let's do it in the most tax efficient way that we can to benefit you the most.
Sure. That's great. Thank you. Well, this is a real estate webinar a lot of times. And so I would love to hear, you have a really interesting view on what your clients, when they're talking about purchasing second homes and advising them through that. So could you share with us a little bit about that and how, when they do buy second homes, how that works out for them?
Right. So buying a second home, I would say, is one of the most common retirement goals that I hear from clients as they're building their wealth and they're thinking about the next phase of their life. And I always tell clients, if this is a goal of yours, we will do everything in our power to make it happen and to happen in the most efficient way possible for you. With that said, I do have some pretty strong opinions on whether it makes sense to own multiple homes. And this is based on my couple decades of experience of being in the financial industry and seeing things that have worked and not worked so well for clients. So in buying a second home, you always need to remember that you are doubling up on your fixed expenses. So if you own two homes, you have two sets of property taxes, two sets of insurance, two sets of utilities, two roofs that may need replaced or dishwashers that could leak, two landscaping bills, you name it. Now, if you have a mortgage, if you take out a mortgage to buy the second home, two pieces of debt with fixed monthly payments, right? So those fixed expenses can really add up when you have a second home. And the higher your fixed expenses are in retirement, the less financial flexibility you have to make changes to your lifestyle. So let's say I own two homes and I have mortgages on both of them. So pretty high monthly fixed expenses. And the stock market takes a turn for the worse. And there's a prolonged recession, and I really need to cut back because things are just not looking great financially. It's really hard to cut back when you have two mortgages, right, with these fixed expenses. So that's one thing to think about is how much financial flexibility would you like to have in retirement, and how does having multiple homes play into that equation? Also, I do see a lot of people buy a second home with the grand thought that this is going to be the place where the children and the grandchildren all gather for a couple weeks in the summer or for the holidays, and it's just going to be wonderful and a special time together. And maybe this is going to be the legacy. This is going to be the family, retreat that gets passed on from generation to generation. Well, I love that concept in theory, and I'm a huge advocate of families spending time together. But before you buy a home with that in mind, think about how easy is it going to be to gather the full family together the same week, the same month, every year, especially if you have grandchildren. As those grandchildren get older, and I'm certainly living this right now with three kids who play sports, it is incredibly difficult for families to find free time and have that be the same free week or free weekend every year, especially if you've got multiple children and grandchildren. Also, what if your love is the mountains, but your kids and grandkids love the beach? Will you buy a property at the beach because you think that's where they're going to be interested in coming? Well, if they come and visit you 2 weeks a year, but you're at the beach house or own the beach house, 50 other weeks of the year, is that going to make sense for you? Are you going to be happy, or would you rather be in the mountains? So I encourage people before they buy the second home, buy it for yourselves. Buy a place where you want to spend time, where you enjoy being. And also think about how many bedrooms you really need to have. If to have the whole family together means you need a 6-bedroom house, there's a price tag attached to that versus if you're the only ones in this house for most of the year, do you maybe need a 2-bedroom house? And could it be possible that when everyone gets together, is it more financially feasible to rent a really nice B&B for the family, even though you've got your 2-bedroom home, for that 2-week period? So that's another financial nuance to consider that I see. I've seen some clients get tripped up on over time is buying way more house than they really should, for the idea that only happens maybe a week or two a year, and buying in a place that they think the family wants to come versus a place that they really want to be.
Yeah, that's actually been in my experience with several of my clients here on Lake Lanier is they have multiple homes, and there was a time when maybe their family was here more often and visiting, but now they're not. And so they're like, do we keep this home? It's a beautiful home in this beautiful location for the 1 or 2 weeks a year when our family will come, or do we sell it? And a lot of them are choosing to make that decision to sell so that it frees them up to be able to do other things that they enjoy doing.
Yeah. Actually, one other thing I want to mention on this topic too is the idea of this is going to be the, intergenerational family home. Um, a big consideration is if you have a piece of property that you want to pass down to the next generation, you have to keep in mind that your kids or grandkids, whoever they are that's receiving this, they're going to have enough money to pay for the upkeep on this home. So are you financially burdening them by by passing this house down? And are they going to feel guilty if they have to sell the house because they can't afford it? And if you have, you know, two, three, or more children co-owning this home, are they all going to agree to keep it, to sell it? Who gets what week? Who's going to pay for the broken window? Things like that. So it can cause some family dynamics to be a little bit more challenging if you are trying to keep a home in the family for multiple generations. I have seen people set up a trust for their kids and grandkids and funded it with some money so they will have funds to pay the expenses on this property. That certainly helps. But certainly, make sure you're having those conversations with your kids and grandkids before you set your estate plan up to pass this piece of property on, and understand, who wants it and who can afford to keep it.
Those are definitely some great things to consider. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
You spoke a little bit about some tax law changes that may be coming up, but are there others that you want to hit on and let our viewers know about today, Lisa?
Yeah, so I did jump a little bit ahead and talked about the estate tax law sunsetting the end of 2025. Do want to reiterate the annual gift tax exclusion is going up from $17,000 to $18,000 per person starting in January. So that's going to be a nice thing to think about. And also with the $100,000 qualified charitable distribution amount, that's currently set to go up to $105,000 next year. So be on the lookout. January 1, there'll probably be some more articles in the media about some final changes to these limits that are going to be rolling out January 1. But if gifting and estate planning is is top of mind as part of your personal financial strategy, just know there's a little bit more enhanced limits coming out to us next year.
Great. Well, I think that this was a really interesting webinar, definitely for me. I loved preparing for it with you and sharing some of the insights that I got from our preparation with some of my friends and family even before this webinar. I think some of them joined today to see what we had to share as well. Thank you so much, Lisa. I don't see any questions in this question and answer box. Parker, I think you're still there, even though your face isn't. Did you see any other questions come in that we want to make sure we hit? Okay, great. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to getting to know you more and working closely with you, with our clients who share a lot of similar interests and needs.
Thank you, Ashley and Parker, and happy holidays to you and your families.
Happy holidays to you. Bye.